Thank you. Testing, go. Okay, hello. Okay, the mic is on, so I'm going to begin. Wow, it's so amazing to see a full room. This is incredible. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Cool. So, I left this up here just for a bit of humor, but I'll actually put that to the first slide. And I'm going to start this talk with a story. So, I wanted everyone in the room to raise their hands if you were an active user of Tumblr between the years 2011 to 2016. And by active user, I mean like you were blogging things, you had your own blog, you actively used it to find artists and things like that. Okay, maybe on this side. Okay, a couple on that side. So the years that are specifically significant is like 2015, 2016. So if you remember that time, keep that in mind. Does anyone here remember the blackout? I know you do, yeah. So the blackout was something that I would always describe as my first experience of a mini digital revolution. And essentially what it was Tumblr it kind of feels like an analog social media platform now because it's just so different to what we have now. So it was basically like a blogging, mood boarding platform. And when I first started Tumblr, it was in 2011. I probably was way too young to be using that platform. But when I did use it for like the first couple years, my blog, my feed was heavily whitewashed. So whether that was white artists, white models, white creatives, there was kind of like that post-skins, youth culture kind of vibe. It was just like my whole entire feed, what I consumed was mainly white faces. And I'm sure any other black and brown people who used Tumblr at that time will also remember that. But the blackout happened when a bunch of black users of Tumblr, mainly in the US but worldwide, decided to flood the feed with selfies, images of each other, images of our craft, and things like that. And it single-handedly changed the landscape of my digital consumption. I went from just seeing like white faces all the time to seeing amazing black creatives, black models, and then also just like average people making art and sharing their craft with people. So it was just this insane switch up, and it's a core memory of mine, which is why I brought it up today. And it's significant because it's brought me to where I am now, I would say. It's one of those things in my journey that I will always remember. Being able to craft my digital landscape, that was like the first time I'd done that, and that's quite a powerful thing when you think about it. We're always constantly consuming so much, and to be able to actively construct that and to say, you know, we're here, we do exist, and we're beautiful was a very powerful thing to experience. So that leads me to why I'm here now. And I'm sure a hefty chunk of people in this room know what sweet-thang is, but to reiterate, sweet-thang is a print zine and independent press that publishes work exclusively by Black creatives around the world. And our work is a mix of art for art's sake, but also art as activism, and using creativity and community to imagine new worlds. It's a creative space for joy, for celebrating those marginalized in our community, such as women and queer folks. And in this talk, I kind of want to describe how I started it, why zines matter, and any inspiration and advice for people who want to start their own zines. So now that I'm in control of this, Cool, so issue 1, issue 2, and issue 3. You can see the dates hopefully at the bottom, but we've been running for about 6-7 years, and that's really, really exciting. This is our 7th issue, so like the latest issue that's out. This is what sweet-thang exists as. It's a print zine, but then we also have an online platform. And then there's issue 4, and issue 5, and issue 6. So how did I start sweet-thang? I started sweet-thang, of course, around the time that I was blogging on Tumblr, but also I was using Blogspot. I don't know if anyone here used Blogspot. That's even more like, it's even more like analog. And Blogspot is significant because while zines have always existed in this physical format, when they started to become digitized, I would say that Blogspot was one of the first platforms that digital zines existed on. So it's quite retro, quite cool, and a really amazing way that digital zines have been preserved and archived online. So my blog was essentially an online diary where I overshared a bit too much, but also found a love for the art of messy documentation. And it was just a bunch of teens sharing their outfits of the day, what albums they were listening to, sharing their poetry and relating to each other. And while that sounds really normal on the surface, when you were in that corner of the internet, it was magical. And people in the zine worlds use the phrase, or the term DIY a lot. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with building your own furniture or men with tools. DIY is anything to do with that messy documentation. It's the imperfectness of relating to others. I always define DIY as not being told or waiting to be told what self-expression is, but doing it yourself. And that's what blogging felt like. Connecting with loads of other like-minded young people was a way for me to do things myself, to make shit and not be afraid of making shit, you know? It was my first taste of online community. And to cut a long story short, I connected with 2 girls who were based in Canada who started their own zine called Plasma Dolphin. And it was kind of like a youth culture zine, very cool. And I had submitted a couple poems to them and stuff like that, and the rest is literally history. So discovering zines was my light bulb moment. There was never a moment of questioning what they were or why they were different to magazines. I just knew. Zines could be made with your best friend in your bedroom. They didn't have to have advertisements in them. They didn't need to be sold in a shop to be legit. They literally didn't have to ask for permission as an art form. So as an angsty, passionate teenager, I was like, fuck yeah. And that elation kind of only lasted a bit, because while I was engaging with these spaces and it was all colourful and punk and youth culture, I did notice that there was a lack of diversity and representation in these spaces. So I felt like a carefree black girl making art, talking about pop culture and teenhood, but there were only a few of us doing it. It still felt relatively exclusive. And it wasn't a great thought to have, but I did kind of have that mindset in the past that if I was a black artist, I had to be making art specifically about trauma and oppression, not just like what my favorite film was and why. So and obviously that's not a great mindset to have, and that's kind of like evolved over time. But yeah, this new culture that I had discovered, it felt inclusive, but it didn't feel inclusive. It sounded inclusive, but it didn't feel inclusive. So it sounds ironic, but safe spaces were a solution to this. So safe spaces are basically where groups of people who share a similar lived experience get together to either relate to each other or make art and just do things, all relating to that shared experience. And in my opinion, they started to filter into the mainstream around 2015, 2016. And that's when the idea of making a zine for and by black folks came to fruition. It was when I discovered that you could be in a space with people who looked like you, who felt the same way you did, who had the same like kind of lived experiences, and you could make art with that, and it was beautiful, and you felt seen. So I was inspired by the likes of Galdem, which was a publication showcasing the perspectives of people of color. They were really like making waves in the industry around 2015, 2016. And yeah, I took everything I loved about this newfound zine making culture and made like a new mood board where I could see myself and where others like me could also be seen. So yeah, sweet-thang was born, and it's this thing that's evolved over time. And sweet-thang is nostalgic, it's fun, it's hopeful. We're really advocates for rambly poetry and amazing visuals and anything that kind of welcomes people to show up as they are. And you know, I've prided myself that sweet-thang has been a place that supports creatives who don't necessarily have a platform. We've never been about exclusivity and kind of hoarding specific creatives and only kind of showcasing them. It's always been welcoming to people who may not have the platform to get their art out to the masses. And yeah, oh my God, my papers are falling everywhere. So yeah, issue 4 was an online issue. Issue 5 was my favorite issue to date. The theme was nostalgia, which is so fun to curate, and people had a lot of fun like interpreting the theme. And people today still talk about this front cover. So this was by an artist called Famila Jadu, who's an amazing collagist. And I feel like it really encapsulated the fun and the energy of sweet-thang. So yeah, that was issue 5, came out in 2019. And then we had issue 6, which was on the theme of healing, came out in 2020. And then our latest one, issue 7. And then issue 8, which I have the theme for it in my head, but haven't told anyone yet, hence the emoji. But who knows, maybe I'll tell people tonight. So yeah, next slide. Yeah, we publish zines that uplift and advocate for the voices of Black folks, specifically Black folks who experience marginalization in our community. And like I mentioned, I was inspired by Galdem, and it was really heartbreaking when they closed operations last year, because I felt like they were a modern day blueprint for disrupting the mainstream publishing industry and leading on diversity, but on our own terms. So I think many people in this room will know about Galdem and would have engaged with them. It really was an empowering time. But I was also heavily inspired by the 90s Riot Girl movement. So that was made up of a bunch of women who were getting together to combat sexism in the punk industry in particular. And it was all about the personal as political and redefining girlhood as something powerful and brash even. And I really loved the aesthetic of these zines because they were filled with like messy collages and angry rants written in all caps and manifestos about women and girls being at the forefront of radical change. Shotgun Seamstress was also a huge inspiration. It was a punk zine, but it was a zine specifically for Black punks. And Osa Ato, who's the founder, she defined it as a zine formed by Black punks, queers, feminists, activists, artists, and musicians. Each issue features interviews, a few personal writings that promote free expression and anti-consumerist / DIY ethics for everyone, but particularly Black youth. So yeah, those were the kind of 3 main inspirations, but I'd honestly be here for 10 years if I tried to talk about the vast history of zine making, because it really is that rich. And many sources actually claim that zines kind of like birthed around the 1930s, which was around the time of the science fiction stardom fandom kind of underground movement. And lo and behold, that was a movement that was dominated by white male zine makers, which makes sense as to why people think it was the beginning, but it wasn't. They've actually been around longer than this, with traces of the amateur press movement being seen in the Harlem Renaissance, for example, with the Black literary magazines that writers like Zora Neale Hurston would have contributed to. So like there's such a massive history of the amateur press movement, the underground press movement, and zines have always been a part of that. And because they've flown underneath the radar of mainstream publishing, it makes them cool and unique, but it also makes them sacred in a way. There's something about their materiality that holds power. And for unpublished radical writers, being platformed through alternative media like zines can be life-changing. So the publishing industry is only just sort of breaking through with greater representation, and yet there's still a long way to go. There's still a lot of barriers for people who don't have a platform. A few things here. Nice images. This was kind of meant to be on a loop, but I think it's kind of nice that I can control it myself. So these are 2 articles that I really love that kind of encapsulate this next part of my talk. But so this article at the top, written by Halima for Bad Form, which was about why we need zines now and forever. And it was an honor to be included in this article. Halima writes that, you know, based on conversations they've had with their community, and also this applies to me as well, zines are a part of alternative media, and you know, people are desperate for that now. People are desperate for alternative media that not only represents their beliefs, but includes and validates and sees them. I think we're living in an age where we're seeing bias in real time when it comes to mainstream media and publishing and things like that. There's a lot of censorship and shadow banning. Zines don't exist in those circles. Zines have always advocated for the voices of those who never really had a voice. And so that they're needed now more than ever, in my opinion. And something that kind of encapsulates all of this is the idea of new manifestos. So as well as publishing our annual print issues, I also host workshops. And something that I love doing at zine making workshops is to sit with all the participants and make a collaborative manifesto. And the prompt that I give these participants is, you know, write down something that you care about, something that you want for the world, something that would be on your personal manifesto. And people's ideas and answers have ranged from, there was a kid from a zine making workshop who wrote, "We need more chocolate in the world," which is very true. And you know, people who've written, "We need more queer joy, we need to reclaim more spaces, take up more spaces." So the answers have really varied, but it's really great to co-create with these people who come to this 2-hour zine making workshop and then create this piece of art that kind of represents the convictions and ideas of the people who've shared that space in such a brief amount of time. And in that way, not only, you know, I've talked about alternative media and how important that is, but collective making with others constantly, no matter what the form, that's a really integral practice of zine culture. And I've received amazing feedback from participants about how it's amazing to just sit and craft for 2 hours, to kind of get out of your head and into your body and fold paper and cut and paste and collage. Particularly adults, I feel like we don't really get to do that often. That's, you know, something we usually associate with young'uns and stuff like that. But when you get to do it, you kind of get a creative urge. You're like ignited with the fact that you can like sit and make, and it's really exciting. And this kind of embodiment is something that Alison Piepmeier perfectly encapsulates in her essay. And I'm going to try and get it up here because I know it's in here, just so you can see the title. So she has this essay called "Why Zines Matter, Materiality and the Creation of Embodied Community." And in this essay, she argues that zines create embodied community through the way they form relationships between maker and reader. They kind of produce this relationship that's rooted in quirky physical realities, you know, the folded paper and things like that. But they also just, yeah, like I said, they ignite this creative urge to do things yourselves, to kind of take your creativity into your own hands. And it's a very physical thing. Lots of zine makers talk about how curating a zine is not just, oh, you're just folding paper and putting a bit of art in it. You're actually forming a conversation. You're forming a conversation with yourself, you're forming a conversation with the art, and you know, once you distribute it, people can pick it up and feel like they're talking to you as well. They're talking to the person who made it. It's a very interweaved, kind of embodied experience, you know? And you know, no matter the topic, whether you're writing a manifesto or making a collage that celebrates women writers, zines will always matter, in my opinion. They will always have a sense of power and sacredness. And that leads me on to my fourth section of the talk. And this is about why, you know, taking that sacredness, that power, that embodiedness, why it's important to amplify minoritized voices. So in 2022, the Runnymede Trust found that only 3% of visual artists from Black and Asian backgrounds are exhibited in major galleries and museums. And in 2016, less than 100 books by British authors of colour were published. So I'm going to read that again so you can take it in. In 2022, the Runnymede Trust found that only 3% of visual artists from Black and Asian backgrounds are exhibited in major galleries and museums. And in 2016, less than 100 books by British authors of colour were published. So those are some insane statistics. And it's safe to say that amplifying then the voices of marginalized people, black and brown voices, is not just a basic necessity, it's an archival one, it's a spiritual one. And sweet-thang, as a zine that celebrates black voices, we are also part of that legacy of preserving and archiving black voices. And there are so many other zines and platforms as well who do this as well. We specifically archive the thoughts and feelings and angst of our community, and as proof that we are here and have been here and will continue to be here, making art and immortalizing parts of ourselves in print. And zines as an art form are becoming more and more recognized for their ability to intimately and directly impact the creative lives of these people. And part of what I want to do with sweet-thang Press, so generating more publishing projects, I want us to imagine new worlds where we don't have to fight for space, where we're already taking up space and being. So that's a vision that I have for sweet-thang. That's part of the legacy that we're building. And last year I did a Black History Month project where I made a zine a day, for each letter of the alphabet, and each letter kind of recorded a slice of Black British history, or was just a creative expression that had some sort of relevance to the Black experience. And for letter O, it stood for the Obala Gallery, which was also known as the Black Art Gallery. It started in the early 1980s, and it was in Islington. It was a physical space, and it was kind of run by these Black activists and artists that were doing a lot of movement in the Black Power and like Black Panther movement. And when I was researching for that, there wasn't actually much that I could find, and it made me realize that there's so much Black British history that isn't well recorded enough, that isn't archived or preserved at all. They're just like on a random website. And it was great to be able to find it, make my own art with it, and then now kind of like establish a web of this like archive now. So I found that on that little website, I put it in this zine, and now people can also find out about it through exploring the zine as well. And I just think this kind of, this layered form of archiving and preserving is really important, and something that I want to continue doing. And because sweet-thang, yes, it's a business in a sense, and it's came from my head, but it's also part of that, leaving that legacy so that future generations can discover us, pick up a zine, and remember that we were here and making art and writing poetry and things like that. So that kind of leads me to my last sort of segment of my talk, which is kind of like 5 basic rules and advice for anyone who wants to start their own zine. And my first piece of advice would be to start messy. Like, you don't have to have like a perfect idea. You can start messy. My second piece of advice would be practice the art of not giving a fuck, which I'm sure a lot of us are doing. I'm literally doing it in real time right now. Number 3, don't do it alone. That's something I had to learn the hard way. If you want to create your own zine, if it doesn't have to be that specific, it could be a platform, a podcast. Don't do it alone. Find people who you can do it with. It makes the process so much easier. Number 4, there is space for your idea. The market isn't too oversaturated. Loads of people think, there's so many zines now, like we can't, no one's you. So if you have your idea, you can make it and you can produce something. And my last one would be to not leave room for self-doubt. And if I could invite people in this room to actually like a CTA, like an action that you can do, make your own manifesto tonight or over the weekend. Get a piece of paper and some pen and write down 5 to 10 things that would be on your personal manifesto for your life, things you care about, things you want to do more of, things you want to see more of, and see what it inspires within you. You might share it with someone and have like a really amazing conversation about life and things. It's just a great exercise to do, and I think it's worth doing. And I'm very aware that being in a space like this, in an institution like this that has like such a deep history, it's really important that on a night like this, which is all about creativity and connecting with people, that we kind of alchemize that desire to create with the desire to liberate as well, and always keeping liberation in the back of our mind, and remembering that we're not free until everyone's free. That's the message that I want to leave on. And thank you so much. Thank you. I'll just leave a couple of things in the presentation that aren't going. These are just examples. There's shotgun seamstress there. You can see the sort of aesthetic of zines as well. And you can see kind of like the textures and how loud and beautiful everything is. Yeah, and if you want to support sweet-thang, you can head to our website or our Instagram. You can buy a copy of issue 7. Please do, it would be amazing. All the support goes into running the zine. Yeah, I think we might have time for a Q&A. If anyone has questions about zines or being a Black woman artist, supporting marginalized people, let me know. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll come over with a mic. You might also need to just like internalize everything you've just heard, so I also understand that as well. I think I see a hand. Cool.
Hi Zoe, I have a question. You teased a little bit about, I think it was volume 8. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to ask you for the tea right now, but what I'd love to know is what keeps you inspired? So how do you keep generating ideas? Like what do you do that's restorative for that?
Mm-hmm. That's such a good question, and I will tease the theme for issue 8. It's going to be dreaming, and very, like each theme, it sounds very, very simple. It's just a word, but the amount of creativity that it inspires when I do the call out and we get loads of work in, it's just amazing. So yeah, I'm constantly inspired by what's happening in the world around us. So for issue 6, the theme was healing, and that came out in 2020, which was a year that I felt like a lot of us needed to heal, or a lot of us were actively healing pretty much every single day. That was very important for me to have a theme that reflected that. And the reason why I want issue 8 to be dreaming is because I feel like we're currently in a time where we're having to really radically imagine new worlds. And yeah, I think it's just needed. So I stay inspired by the things that are happening around me, but also kind of just, it could even be like materialistic and superficial. Like for example, with issue 5 being nostalgia, I just knew that would be a fun issue to do. I just knew that the interpretations would be really creative and bold. So yeah, it's when thinking thematically about zine, it's really fun. You could literally take any word in the world and make it a theme for an issue. So yeah, there's so much to see around you, whether that's kind of like the really awful things that are happening in the world to like the really beautiful mundane. So yeah, take inspiration from all around. Any other questions?
Hi. Oh. Hi. I have like 2 questions in one, if that's okay.
Yeah, I can't see you.
How did you grow your audience, and like how do you grow an audience if you feel like the sector that you want to go into is kind of like undersaturated instead of oversaturated? So you don't feel like there's enough of an audience for you and for the things that you want to make. How do you go about like finding those kind of people so your message can like be out there, I guess?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question as well. In terms of how I grew sweet-thang's community at the beginning, I always, maybe this is a bit of like a cheat of an answer, but around the time of 2015, 2016, when I started making sweet-thang and telling people about it, I still felt like it was a time when people actually cared about each other, and when the online space was actually a much kinder place. So I just feel really lucky that it was easy to kind of be like, oh, can you share this? And someone just would. And I just feel like that just doesn't happen anymore. But I think that you said the kind of idea that you have is kind of in an undersaturated market. But I do believe that if there are other people who also care about the things that you do, really, really connect with them, find them, talk about your ideas, and the word kind of just gets out from there. And I think Instagram is a great place to start because you can kind of, you don't have to have lots of material to begin. You can make a mood board and just post loads of inspiration that you like on there, and the people who like that sort of stuff will come. So I think, yeah, find a platform, choose a platform, and actively fill it with things that make sense to you about whatever theme you've gone for, or whatever niche you've gone for, and you will start to attract people. It might not be overnight, but people will come, essentially. So I used social media at first, and just talking to people, finding someone who you know can be in your corner and support you as well is a great place to start. Cool. I think that might be, I think that might be the end, sorry. No worries. Thank you so much again for everyone who asked a question just then, but then also just listening and being such a great audience. If you want to chat to me afterwards, feel free to. Lots of love.
No, nunca.
everything in a sec. I'll just get a zine. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that it's over, but like it was also amazing at the same time.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi, my name is Winnie. So lovely. Huh? Yeah? Amazing. Definitely. Yeah, it would be good to see what was done. I know that I asked Liat to just like put some of Miranda's work up so that people can see it. So I haven't seen what. Pardon? Do you want it on rotation or flicking or? On rotation would be good, so that when we're talking, it's like going past. But yeah, it would be good to see what. Oh, is it clicker? Amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Is what you expected, is it?
No, it looks good. Yeah, there was a selection that came up, and I was like, it would be good to show that. Is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, it ends there.
That's it.
Brilliant, amazing.
So I'll just move it around now.
Yes. Ooh.
Okay.
I feel like with clickers, Miranda.
Well, we couldn't do that here.
Is it that way? Oh, okay, cool. So, I can.
Or would you rather just flick through yourself because it can just find them?
Yeah, I think I would flick through myself in case I want to stop and like talk about one of them.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it all looks great. Thank you. Thank you.
So not on rotation?
No. when it gets to like 20 past, to let us know that it's 20 past. Is that where they are usually? Okay. They did for the last. Yeah, she did for me. She did decide for me, and that's like I think this.
I got the train, and it was not that busy, actually. It wasn't raining. It was okay. Yeah. It's cold, though. Yeah, a bit cold. Okay.
Just wanted to let you know, so when you gesture, just remember if you're going to gesture, just
Yeah.
put the mic there.
Okay, yeah.
And you can't be heard, but yeah,
Okay.
that's perfect.
Great, thanks.
So you can set it down until...
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much for coming to this talk. My name is Winnie Imara, and this is Miranda Forrester. Thank you for coming to this talk. We are going to start off. So, Miranda, why don't you introduce yourself to those who don't know of your work, those who have, are just getting to know you today? That would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Miranda. Thank you so much for coming. I'm a figurative painter, mainly making paintings of black queer women in relationships with each other in domestic environments. And my work is really focused on readdressing that kind of invisibility of queer black women in the history of art, and also in life drawing and life painting, and trying to reclaim our bodies and the way that we're representing ourselves.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. When did you start? When did that begin for you, that journey?
I've always been painting, making art, but I think once I started my BA, I was really started focusing on the body, the figure, and trying to represent the body in a way that it hadn't been seen before, or from a sort of authentic point of view, because I was feeling like any imagery of nude women in painting was painted by men, painted by white men, or anything white bodies, and I wanted to represent my body, the bodies of my friends, people that I know, in a way that is authentic and that maybe we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I love that, and I totally agree. When looking at history, it was, definitely not seeing black women's bodies represented in a positive light. And it's so good to see that through your art, you were able to clearly articulate and define, the beauty of having, our bodies as women, as black women. So thank you. I'm going to share something that you have said before, and is my work is a celebration of women's bodies, the joy in occupying feminine identities and being in relation with one another. When you said this, what were you thinking?
I think always when I'm making my work, I'm thinking about trying to capture a feeling or a sort of moment in time. And for me, that is generally like the feeling of coming home after being out all day, and like feeling like you can relax and be fully in your own space, and the space that you created for yourself with whoever you live with, and feeling completely comfortable, and like everything is kind of in its natural state and how it's supposed to be. So really just a feeling of like rootedness, and particularly my work focuses a lot on domestic environments and people's homes, and I'm very interested in how people curate their homes and how they make their spaces their own, especially in a world that is very hostile towards black people, queer people, and how home is a really significant part in making you feel like you have somewhere that you can be free, in a sense, belong, especially to be creative. That's why my studio is so important to me as well, of making that space where I can be creative, or I can make work, where you can tap into those emotions.
I really love the words that you shared. That kind of stuck out to me was belonging and home. I feel like that is such a big thing for, the black community and black people. There's been that kind of sense of not feeling like that in certain environments and certain spaces. And it's so good that, a space doesn't have to be just this hall, but it's the work that you create, the things that you decide to make, the bold moves that you decide to do can actually create a space, a home, and a belonging for the community that you are making work for. So we are going to just share a bit, this is some of her work. I really loved this image. When you were speaking about belonging and home, straight away this image came up for me. And I'd love for you to share just your process with this and what got you into this, and how, you got to making this image.
Yeah, this painting is called Two Mothers, One Scar, and it's from a recent body of work. This is from last year. And previously before this series, I was mainly making paintings of single figures or couples in their homes and domestic environments. And in 2022, I became a parent and wanted to. I think it sort of was, for me, added like another layer of invisibility, or you know, it's like being queer, being black, mixed race, and then having a baby in a same-sex partnership is like another level of representation that you're just not seeing or feeling completely left out of, you know. Especially like going through all the kind of processes of having a baby, a young child, and NHS, and all of these organizations that are just completely set around heteronormative families. So I wanted to make a body of work that just made visible my experience, what I'd been through, what we'd been through as a family. And this was a painting of me and my partner in my home. Also, it's like very personal, so I was really like, unsure about sharing this imagery because I've always generally painted like my friends and people that I know. Yeah. So it felt like, a kind of another step to literally represent my home exactly as it is. So yeah, this is a painting of us and my daughter when she's about 6 months old, I think. And I've referenced a few other works as well in the background. So there's a painting that I have on my wall at home by Charlotte Ololode, who's a friend and a peer, incredible artist who also makes work about queer black women in romantic relationships. So I wanted to reference other artists that were exploring similar themes to me, and also artists from before my time, to show that other people have been making this kind of work. I'm not the first person to do it, and we've all just been ignored. So I want to do that. So the other two images, the middle one is from Catherine Opie, her 1994, I believe, series, where she photographed queer families in their homes around America. And then Joan E. Byron on the right, who photographed lesbian parents living in lesbian cults in the 70s in America. So it's like very niche references, but I think when you're searching for this imagery, it's like it doesn't exist. And then when you find someone who's been making this type of work, it's really important to see that. So I wanted to reference them in the work.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. When I do look at this image, it does, like you said, it's super personal, and I feel that as soon as I saw it, I felt, you know, like I was a part of that in some sense. It feels pure, it feels raw, and it feels genuine as well, and it does feel like it comes from your heart. So yeah, thank you for sharing. What is the importance of artivism in relation to your creative work?
I think activism in my work has been quite a subtle undercurrent, because in a way it's like the work that I'm making shouldn't be, you know, it shouldn't be that sort of contentious. Like I'm really just painting women as they are in their own homes, and they're often very subtle, very kind of calming scenes. But because of this lack of representation and also lack of acknowledgement of different types of family setups, in a way that has been my activism, is like showing that we are here, we exist, and that we want to take up space. And I think also showcasing black women in a space of like lounging, like relaxing, enjoying, not always fighting, not always being strong, for me has been really important.
I love that you said that, because it is really important that we are seen in that light. You know, we can rest. Yeah. And, you know, we are able to rest. We are able to enjoy ourselves. We are able to smile and laugh. It doesn't always have to be a struggle and a fight. And I think that needs to be consistently shown, that representation. And, you know, in whatever in light, you know, you have shown it through art. People can show it through music or acting or whatever that is. I think it is really important. And in terms of activism and art, is that something that you always wanted to do from young, or is it something that it started off in uni? Is it something that you saw? What sparked it, you know, in terms of, you know, that passion and wanting to specifically do that? Because I feel like with art, it's so open, you know, like you can literally go, you can do whatever you want. Art can literally be anything. But what sparked that?
I think, especially going through like the UK school
And was that journey, how was that journey, you know, because you said not everyone was accepting it and or encouraging you to that, and you know, to get to where you are now. And sometimes that can be discouraging. You know, some people might, you know, if someone wasn't encouraging them, they would just be like, okay, I'm done and I don't want to do this anymore, and I can't see that. But you're obviously, I'm sure someone's here in this space right now, or, you know, they'll be watching online, and they will see you and and they'll be inspired. So yeah, how was that journey? Was it long? Was it quick? Was it, you know, difficult? Or was it, how was that process?
I think for me it feels long, but I think from an outside perspective, it actually was short. And things did happen quite quickly after I graduated. But in a way, it feels like I've been starting my career from when I started my degree course. I was working on like the exact same themes that I'm working on now, and it's all kind of part of my development. So yeah.
Amazing, thank you. What advice / wisdom might you be able to share with other creatives / artists that are starting out or in an emerging stage of their creative practice?
Okay, one I've stolen from someone else. But Labena Hamid said, stay ready, which I think is the best piece of advice you could ever get, because it's so accurate in the art world. It's like, you need to stay ready, because things come up all the time, last minute, or, you know, we have space suddenly in this show and it's a great opportunity. Do you have anything? And it's just great advice to always be making something, always be thinking about something, always be doing research, reading, something that's going to feed into your practice, so that when an opportunity presents itself, you have something to present. That's definitely something, I think about a lot.
So stay ready.
Stay ready.
Actually, I'm going to open it up to any questions that anyone has. Don't be shy. Has anyone got any questions? Oh, yeah, I can see a hand. Feel free to stand as well, if you're not. Yeah. Is there a mic for, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Miranda, for sharing your work. I really love it. And that's the first thing I wanted to say. And also because it's very vulnerable to show your personal space, and you're being vulnerable with us. So I really appreciate that as well. I appreciate vulnerability. Thank you. My question is in regards to getting into the art world, which is white predominant, right? And we can say it is very colonial, like art has always been a mean to, how do you say, to hold wealth, right? That is how white people hold wealth. So how do you feel participating in such a colonial space? And how do you break the norms of, for example, always stay ready, right? So if you want to be seen, how do you keep that rhythm?
Thank you. I would say it's really difficult. It's, especially when I first started, it took me a long time to get my head around the art world, how it works, what system I'm entering into, because I don't think you have any idea about that when you're studying, because you just, you think you want to be an artist and you love making work and you love making art, and that's it for you, and that's what drives you. But then you're sort of pulled into this system with all of these rules and norms and cultures that you're completely unaware of, especially if you're not from an art background. You're like, I didn't have any connections in the art world before, so you're sort of learning as you're going along, which means you will make mistakes and things will go wrong, and you do learn from that. And actually that was another advice I wanted to say, was that your peers, your artist peers, are the most important people to sustain you throughout your career, and hold on to them, basically, because you will need each other, I think it's still ongoing. It's still ongoing how we navigate all of these political questions around making work, where you're showing work, who you're showing work with. And I don't really have any answers. I think it's just sort of an ongoing question. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. Is there there's another hand over there.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you need to represent, because we are not seen in the art world, have you felt that pressure as well?
I've typically always painted people that I know, so my friends, people from community. People often reach out to me as well to say they'd like to be in a painting, and I've reached out to people as well that I don't know who said, would you like to be in a painting? And these things, they always kind of work out, I think, the way they're supposed to. So and I think as well through the process of drawing, even if I haven't known them before, I get to know them really well. I always try and make the life drawing process as comfortable as possible, always having a conversation. I do feel the pressure to represent my community, but also there are a lot of other artists, my peers, who are also representing our community in loads different and amazing ways. So I'm really grateful to be part of that community and part of a movement, I guess, really, of the next kind of generation of Black artists.
I love how you said before that it's not just you, and that there's other people in the community as well doing similar work that you are doing as well. And I think that's important, that there needs to be a lot of us, in different spaces, creating work that represents the community that we are creating this work for. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello. I'm from Department of Museum at UCL, and then I study about the decolonization and cultural changes within the social practice in the museum and the art education. And I would like to ask you about it. As an artist, how would you define your certainty about being yourself, and then being representing your culture and representing your philosophy within it? Because I'm really interested about your work and how you practice it out. But on the other hand, I would like to ask as a person.
Sorry, could you repeat the end of the question? So,
I would just summarize everything. How do you define your your cultural and identical certainty in your artwork? Because I just really love your style, but I would like to ask about it. Because I think a lot of people are asking about the community and then society, but I want to ask you about how would you personally would define it?
Thank you. I think I've always felt quite strongly about the work that I want to make, and I know some other artists struggle with that. And for me, that's never been an issue. I've always known what the work is I want to make, and then I guess the issue has been how am I making it, and that's what has changed more in my practice in terms of what the painting looks like, what materials I'm using, rather than the motive and the meaning. But I feel like once I started showing works, the community sort of gravitated towards me, and I think the people who are receptive towards your work are the people that you'll be receptive towards, and some of those processes actually end up happening quite organically. It's just people that are showing up for you, people who want to come to your show, supporting your work. I think it's important to hold on to those people, and surround yourself with people who support you and support what you're trying to do.
Yes. Any more questions? Oh, did someone? Yeah.
So you've already said that when you're creating a piece of work, that apart from like this one, you're mainly working with family and friends. So when you're creating a piece, how much, like, what is the process you're going through? Like, how much time are you spending in situ with the subjects? When you're depicting a space such as this, how long are you there for? Are you taking kind of sketches and then going back to your studio and creating it mainly there? Or are you feeling like you're getting that connection on the spot and you're working with these people, in the environment you're depicting them in?
So I do drawings from life. So I'll usually go to whoever I'm drawing in their home and make a series of drawings. I do continuous line drawings, and I make a lot of them quite quickly. And probably 90% of them will be trash. And then there'll be like 2 or 3 from them that stand out or that I think will make a good painting. So then I take those back to the studio and then play around with what kind of scale I think I want to paint them on. Sometimes it will just be like closer up, like studies of someone's face, or just a smaller image. Sometimes it'll be a more detailed image that I think will work better on a larger scale. So I take those back to the studio and then work on them there, and then decide which ones I'm going to paint, which ones I'm not going to paint, also which surface I'm going to paint on, because I paint on 2 different materials. So I do works on canvas, which is like this one, and then I do works on a range of transparent surfaces. So that's usually the biggest decision of what material I'm going to paint them on. And then usually once I have the drawing, the painting comes very easily from the drawing. The drawing is the hardest part for me. And then really I see the painting as just an extension of the drawing, and like drawing with paint, because it doesn't change too much from the drawing. Thank you.
Amazing. I think we probably have time for one more question. Yes, amazing. Amazing. Thank you.
I'm not so eloquent with my English, I think, but I will try to make myself understand through the question. So I feel as a black artist, do you think do you have to be an activist through your artwork, or do you think it's something that you choose? Because talking from self-experience, being like in a wide context as this is the art academy, like it feels like it kind of like push you to be an activist, because your art is always going to be representing something that is not like, the main image of everything. So do you think it was more like your main, you choose it, or you think it's like something that every black artist have to do?
Yeah, this is something I talk about a lot with some of my friends. I feel like for me, it is part of my work, and it is something that is the driving force, and that's something I actively want to be in the work. But I know other people who make work who they don't see as being activism or consciously directly about being black, and I feel like the way things are at the moment, you will always be put in that kind of space, regardless of whether you want it or not. So I guess it's up to you if you choose to sort of run with that, or if you want to actively fight against that. But I think it's very difficult as well to detach you as your person from the work unless you deliberately make yourself anonymous. So once people know that you're black, or they see a picture of you, you will be put in those categories. You will be asked to be in those shows about black art, unless you're deliberately saying that you don't want to. So I feel like in a way it is a decision that you have to make, if that's something that you want or not. But yeah, I felt like as well at university, definitely I was having those conversations a lot, and there were other artists I know who were being pushed into that, into you are black, so you must need to make work about being black, about activism, about racism, when I think it really varies as well where your creative energy comes from. Because for me, I need to feel happy and content to be able to make work. I can't make work from a place of pain or suffering, although that will work its way into the work. For me, making work is about making things that are positive and that are celebratory and beautiful and uplifting. So yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. But yeah, thank you for your question.
Amazing, thank you. How can people find your work in terms of if they wanted to come to an exhibition, or is there anything, well, I'm sure you're like all over the world doing your thing, but in London, or how can they find your work?
I have a show opening next week in Chicago. It's not here. If anyone happens to
I said all over the world, and yeah.
But otherwise, I'm represented by Twani Contemporary, so they're my London-based gallery. So you can follow them to see where I'm showing. And my Instagram is Miranda Forrester.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Miranda. If everyone can please give her a round of applause. Thank you for coming to this talk.
Thank you so much for coming.
Is that
You're the host. Will you be able to see me there, or do you want to sit on this side?
I'll see you on this side.
Yeah. So if you sit there, maybe you'll be able to see me a little bit better.
See you a lot better here. Yeah.
But will you turn to me at the right time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'll always look for the tech. Oh, okay, cool.
Do you want to give it a? Yeah. Do you want to give it a try now?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Hello. My name is Nicole Crentsil. Welcome. Yeah.
Yeah. Just be mindful to just keep it close.
Yeah. Not pop star. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. I'll hold it this way.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do I need this clicker for anything, or is the slideshow not going off by itself?
This is on loop. This one. Okay. Nicole, you going in the middle, and then you going on the corner. How do you fancy that? Are they too bright? Okay, give me a sec. Let me dim them. Can you do?
No, this is good. That's
Okay.
Okay.
Is there an action opening in the? It's on. It should be.
Yeah. So I'm talking. What do we think? We have a mouth here. It's really hard to put it all the way in. Better like a little.
The closer the better.
How about that? Is that close enough? Is it clear? Okay.
I don't. Is mine on? Can you hear me?
If you see me like
Yeah, it's going to be really hard
just
to
go
remember
like
that. So someone's going to have to give me
And
a
if
sign.
I see you, I'll do the
Someone's
right
going to have to
thing.
give me a sign. But if you can't hear me right here.
No, I can't. I'm just trying to make sure.
Yeah, it's.
It's better. The closer you have it.
Yeah, well, this is kind of
I can
obscene.
touch it. It's okay.
It really is a bit much. Okay, sure. Okay, great. Just please do something about those lights. All of them. Can they go in the out towards the audience or something, or up towards? I just can't even look at Kata. I can't look at anyone.
Actually, this one.
Hello. Yes. Hi. Amazing. Hi, everyone. Yes. Loud. Hi, welcome to Art Chats curated by Black Girl Fest at Tate Late. Really, really excited to have you all here in conversation with myself. Hi, I'm Nicole Crentsil. I'm the founder of Black Girl Fest. For those who don't know, stop it. I've got fans. Before I get into the introductions and the bios and everything that we've got going on today, I'm going to keep an eye on time because we have started a little bit later. Thank you all for your patience waiting, and for those joining, welcome. I'm truly honoured to be here in conversation for our arts chats with the Guerrilla Girls. To my left and to my right, we have the wonderful Katya and Frida, who I've had so many amazing conversations with before we got here today, and I'm really excited to get into this conversation. They have mentioned that they are going to ask me questions, and I was like, whoa, that's not how it goes. But I'm really excited to get into the conversation, to learn a bit more and to share and understand about their practice, the art, the activism, the many years they've worked in the industry, but also hopefully to give some wonderful advice to those of you in the crowd. We have been here all night, so we are going to try our best to have open conversations with you guys as well and open the floor for some questions if there are any towards the end. Like I was getting into, a little bit about Black Girl Fest. For those who've been joining some of the sessions that we've had today in this space, you would have been engulfed in conversations around Black women, about art, about activism, but also in the ways in which those intersections really allow artists and creatives to kind of produce work that engages with this community. And that's really about what Black Girl Fest is really passionate about, the core values of where the festival actually began. The business started out as a festival in 2017, really producing and curating spaces for Black women to be seen and heard, girls, non-binary people, and we've grown and grown every single year since. Post-COVID, we had our most recent festival at Somerset House, which has been amazing, and it's been really great to kind of bring communities back together and to kind of continue to have conversations that really kind of push the boundaries of where we are seeing arts and culture, inclusivity, diversity, but also the experiences of Black women every single day in Britain. So let's get into chat. Right.
Go right ahead.
So today it's really about celebrating your Tate edit and the works and of yourselves, but other wonderful artists that we can see across the space. I'd love to know, like, why do you feel like your work still resonates today?
Well, one reason is we're still doing it. We've done like probably 400 different. Am I on? Am I okay? Oh, better. Okay, sorry. We're still doing it. We started out with this idea about trying to do political art in a different way and hope that we could change people's minds. And so when something worked, we just did another thing, and then we did another thing, and then we did another thing. And that's why we're still here, because we're still doing it. There's always more villains to go after, and there's always more ways we try to twist an issue around and tell people something they didn't know before.
And I would say that 100 years of feminism is not equal. Well, comparing that to the millennia of patriarchy, not everything would be solved. So there's still a lot of residual patriarchy that we have to fight.
Yeah.
I mean, recognizing the problem and making it go away are like two different things.
Yeah. No, I always get asked, when will I stop producing festivals? And I say, well, when will we ever see the balance of where we see inclusivity for Black women within the works in itself? My work is redundant when I see that end result. Until then, we keep creating.
Totally.
No, I love that. With what you were mentioning about the activism and the conversations that you're having, what role do you feel like, and how do you feel like that evolution has happened over the years? Obviously, you've been operating since the 80s. You've seen far in between so many conversations over the years from a global perspective. I'd love to know a little bit more about where you feel like art activism has changed in the formation, since the formation of Guerrilla Girls.
Well, I think we've changed, not we, but a certain social consciousness has changed. When we first started in 1985, there was a New York dealer who he shamelessly said that artists of color and women are not producing work that's part of the contemporary art dialogue. Now, no one would say that again, again. I mean, racism and sexism have taken different forms now. So that has changed. However, other things have, the conditions of the art world have changed. There's, of course, a great glass ceiling for women artists and artists of color. They don't earn the same money that white men do. And when you don't earn the money, you don't have the means of production. And everyone knows how expensive it is to make big fancy installations. Also, we really didn't foresee the fact that art, visual art, would become an instrument of investment. And I don't know if it's as rampant here as it is in the United States, but art is bought, collected, controlled, and even hidden away by whoever has the most money to pay for it. And it's kind of sad that one whole stream of cultural production can be controlled by a handful of wealthy people. That wasn't exactly the case when we started, but it has become the case. And we have to fight that, and we do it by making art that cannot be collected that way. And we encourage artists to try to subvert the economy of the art market, because it's no better than it was in the 17th and 18th centuries when kings and queens and dictators and emperors told the world what high culture was.
Yeah. Anything to add?
I think that says it, really. I mean, also we had this idea to do street posters, and we didn't have to do what a lot of groups get stuck doing, which is deciding what to do. We started with that, and now we can do a street poster, as big as this building or as small as this chair. And we try to do it better all the time. We've had fantastic members over the years who put their 2 cents into everything, and we're always studying, looking at parts of the culture, and trying to break them one by one.
In speaking about your work, I'd love to speak a bit more about the use of humor and how you kind of navigate, and what is the real driver for that in the works?
Well, I think humor has always been used by marginalized groups as a weapon against their oppressors. Sometimes it's the only weapon that you have. And it makes you feel good. It also gets other people's, attention. But we also found that it could be transformative. If you make someone who disagrees with you laugh at something, and then you're in their head. You're in their head. You own a little bit of real estate in there, and if you can then figure out, using logic, using statistics, whatever, to prove something, you have a much better chance of changing their minds. Humor is a leveler. When you can get someone to laugh, you've got their attention. You have, and they're listening.
It definitely forces people to think and to kind of unpack what am I being told here, and for messaging when you're speaking around racism, sexism, sharing statistics, trying to be kind of ironic and humorous and silly, it kind of embeds in people's head about, why is this industry so sexist? So it's definitely, and it's also kind of this memorable tool as well. So people walk away remembering that insightful, witty, jokey kind of piece of, and I think it's a really powerful way, specifically for art with such a message.
You have to be careful, though, to punch up, not punch down. When you punch up, you're addressing power, but when you punch down, you're ridiculing.
Yeah, and also it's exhilarating to work really hard to come up with something that's different, something that our group didn't expect to come up with, and to deal with an issue in a new way, because it's really important to be able to do that, to really reach people. And that means that not only is our work humorous, but the making of it, even though we're dealing with horrible issues sometimes, is really fun. And we get to experience that high of doing our best and realizing, wow, this one just might work.
In kind of trying to pull this all together, because I know we don't have very long, I'd love to know where you feel the art world has changed for women, or has it not changed?
Well, I think I sort of explained that. It has become certainly bigger. I mean, look at this event. This is an incredible event. Incredible event. But how many of you can actually afford to buy art? Not too many, probably. So there's a tremendous interest in art, in the production of art, and also the creative solution, of creative problems. But what has changed is the way that it has been monetized. We need more artists, not fewer superstars, and we have to try to keep the art world from always being an Olympics where, a few people win and everyone else loses. And the sad thing is the money all goes to the top and not at the bottom. And many of the artists who work every day and love their work just to create a creative community out of which these stars come, they need to be valued too. There are lots of cultural traditions where, art is a community thing and it's not a competitive thing, where artists work together, and just the fact of being an artist is a respected profession, has a respected place in the community. Whereas sadly in the art world, somehow success is what defines an artist, which is really unfortunate. It's capitalism. We really need to subvert that.
I definitely think there's something to be said about the way in which I'd love to see more intersectionality happening within the cultural spaces, and seeing more people who don't feel like the space belongs to them in the space. And I think that's probably why, the real core of why we started Black Girl Fest and how a lot of the programming and the work began. And I think what's exciting now, I definitely see more collectives, more DIY culture, more people creating for the sake of art for art's sake. But they're still met with that glass ceiling if they ever want to progress any further. And I think it's trying to work with the institutions, work with the players, to try and level the playing field and think about it in a more intersectional and inclusive manner, which is what I always find when I work with artists, and they're very much just like, how do I progress my career? What does it look like for me? How do I get my photography on billboards? And I have to ask them, why do you want your work to be on billboards? Like, is that the height of your career and then you're done? Like at 21, your work is on a billboard, and is that it? So I think that kind of career and like you mentioned about like, letting artists be able to not be so competitive with each other and finding real roots into, and even just questioning what success really looks like.
I think we have to create the art world that we want to inhabit, because the art world that exists has, many are called and few are chosen, and even fewer are rewarded. So we need to change that, and we can do that rather than just submitting to the establishment.
Yeah. Does that involve taking it all apart and starting all over again?
Well, one thing, I just have to speak in support of the billboard industry. We love doing giant billboards all over the world. And I think what you said is absolutely correct. But we can't be in one fancy, important, self-important art world. I mean, artists are doing work, many of you, I'm sure, every day all over the place. And there are different models today. It's great to become a superstar in the huge money, fancy art world. But honestly, every study I've ever seen, the truth is that almost no artists make a living just from their art. They teach, they have a day job, they do many other kinds of jobs, and I feel we can't change that system right away. I agree completely. These systems just have to change. But meanwhile, I feel that we're just so lucky that you can't stop people from making art. They're always going to do it. And some of that art will be things, even if you don't get anointed in your own lifetime, these things will live on. And look at all the stuff we love and appreciate that we weren't taught in school, because school was moribund, and it was like one great genius after another, and that is not art. We wouldn't have any culture without this need and desire to make art. You cannot stop it, and that is why we are all so many creative people out here.
Actually, I have a suggestion. Make cheap art. Make cheap art that everyone can own. The way music, film, books We've invented that. The same poster you buy from us for $30 is the same poster that's hanging downstairs in the museum. So we've really subverted that and figured it out because we never wanted to play in that world of, you know, expensive art. And join us. Join us. Let's make an economy of cheap art together.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. I'm being signaled for wrap it up. So if there's any questions in the crowd, if you can put your hand up, and I don't know if there's a roaming mic, but it's a lovely room, so you can shout it. If there are any questions. If not, I'm going to go to the dozen questions I've got.
I think there's a hand way back. I can see through, but you may
How
not
did you
be
see
able
that? The
Person with the
lights are
hand.
bright. Person with the hand, feel free to.
Can I ask, has something gone that you've tried to do that's gone wrong? Can you talk about an example maybe where things haven't worked as you wanted to, and what learning you got from that?
Yeah. Did you hear that?
Things that
Talk about things that you haven't worked and the learnings.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff, and even though, and I don't know if this advice would help anybody, but everything we do, we test drive with somebody who hasn't seen it, hasn't seen the discussions, you know, and we don't say to them, you think this is good? We say to them, what am I trying to say here? And that's how we, you know, hone our communication skills. But sometimes we're really surprised at something that suddenly blows up where maybe we thought something else would do a lot better. So don't we all have that experience? You never really know until you get it out there.
Yeah, thank you for that. One more question, potentially?
Well, I could answer the last question. And
Yeah?
Another one. We did. Oh, sorry. Is there another question?
No. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Was somebody raising? I can't see a damn thing here. Okay.
Oh, all right. Here's one big mistake we made early on, and we were sort of full of ourselves. We were invited by a very fancy discotheque called the Palladium in New York in 1985. To do, yeah, it was, that's what it was, big fancy space. And when it opened up, it combined music with art. Now that's a big deal, but then it was new. And all the art they showed there were guys. And rumor got around that women weren't happy about it, and so they decided to do a women's show. And who did they ask to curate it? Us. And we were just, oh, wow, this is great. We had hardly been working a year, and we got this big opportunity. Isn't that great? So we put together lists of women artists who we knew, who we thought should be in the show, and we put the show up, and it was a great night. Lots of people came. But then we started to hear complaints. Well, you didn't include me, and you didn't include this one, and you didn't include that one. And we realized that no show was large enough to include every woman artist who deserved to have her work shown. So at that point we realized we would never curate another show, that we are really about being inclusive, not exclusive. And if someone else wants to do that sort of selection, you know, process, fine, but we weren't going to put ourselves in that position again. So we never curated a show, we don't jury shows. We don't even like to talk about the work of living artists. You know, we leave that up to the world. But we talk about the condition of artists, but not individuals. It's not an individual problem. This is a structural problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Did the show, where was it based? You said New York.
Oh, at the Palladium, which was a big disco. Big disco. Yeah, remember that word, disco?
Yeah, when you said discotheque, I remember.
Club. It was a club.
Well, if that's it, we will wrap up the art chat. Thank you all for joining and being a part of this conversation. And thank you to the Guerrilla Girls for joining myself and having this beautiful conversation. Thank you so much to the Tate team as well for making this all happen. We really appreciate it.
And we wish you all the best with what you're doing. What you've done in a few years is just amazing.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate it.
And all of you, please support her organization, go to her events.
Thank you. It's really kind. Thank you. I really appreciate it. But yeah, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a good evening. Thank you.